The Olympics, the most famous sporting stage on the planet. It stands as the pinnacle for almost every event. But there is one sport that can't find its way in. Squash has tried and failed to get into the Olympics for many years now, and it has recently been rejected once again for the 2024 Games in Paris. The International Olympic Committee recently announced that skateboarding, surfing, breakdancing and sport climbing were to be added to Paris 2024. The first three of these sports were already listed for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic programme. The news sparked frustration and anger among squash players and fans all over the world. So how has the sport, which got voted world's healthiest sport by Forbes magazine in 2017, still not made the cut?
We've been trying for a number of years and we've been very unfortunate on a couple of occasions. Squash has also had a couple of very poor campaigns, which would have been a good opportunity for them to get in, but they were not run particularly well. The last couple have been very good, but unfortunately it's been down to the changes that the IOC have made in terms of the parameters for becoming an Olympic sport. That's been the sort of the toughest hurdle to overcome.
The IOC say they have been striving to make the Olympic programme gender balanced, more youth focused and more urban, all of which favour these newly introduced sports.
It's sort of being aimed at the youth supposedly, even though lots of young people play squash, but it's moving away from being the pinnacle of sport where you have to be fittest, fastest, strongest, whatever it might be in a sporting environment. It's almost moving back towards some of the more subjective sports which are slightly harder to quantify. At the current time, I don't believe squash will get in because we're trying to get into the wrong event. We're trying to get into the best sporting event in the world, and the IOC is trying to rebrand the Olympics into, like I said, it's a sports, culture and arts event that's focused on the youth.
The Professional Squash Association, alongside the World Squash Federation, both wrote to IOC Sports Director Kip McDonnell back in February to express their concerns with the selection process.
I mean, I've always been a little sceptical of the Olympic process, having seen the different occasions where effectively squash was in London 2012, but then wasn't ratified as Olympic sport. So London actually was 2 sports short and only had 26 sports instead of 28. I was hopeful that would happen, and this time round, for the first time, I was pretty confident that we had a very, very good chance. I was involved in the Youth Olympics in Buenos Aires last October, which went down really well with everyone from the IOC, so I was pretty hopeful that would be the case.
In an attempt to boost their Olympic hopes, Squash Goes Gold was launched by the PSA and WSF with the backing of big-name players such as Nick Matthews and Camilla Serm. The campaign boasted that the sport would be able to showcase the beauty, youth and innovative drive of Paris, but the optimism didn't last long.
I mean, the Squash Goes Gold was going to be a fantastic campaign, but unfortunately 5 days after it was launched, they made the announcement that actually for Paris 2024, the shortlist was going to include breakdancing, which is the favourite, and a number of other sports, and didn't include squash. So that kind of curtailed that sort of campaign, and it was going to be a really strong campaign, and I think would have given us a great chance of getting in the Olympics had it been given the time to unfold.
Although the squash world are disheartened by the recent news, they are no stranger to disappointment, and their recent exclusion didn't come with too much surprise.
Well, the sport has changed dramatically from the beginnings of glass back walls. We've moved through the 80s and 90s into all glass courts, coloured floors, white balls, far better presentation and importantly far better broadcast coverage. So by the time we got to the noughties, we were ready for the Olympics. Unfortunately, the Olympics still aren't ready for us. The IOC do have a tradition of, should we say, moving the goalposts. So for 2016 a new sport was going to be added, one taken out and new sport added, and wrestling were taken out, but the new sport added was wrestling. They were just simply put back in again. So we have to accept that the IOC own and run the games, and we need to fulfil their criteria. What we focus on is what we will bring to the Olympics as opposed to what it will bring for us, because we feel we would be a great addition to the Olympic programme. An IOC person once told me that eventually the train will stop at your station, you've got to be ready to go on. Well, we're ready to get on, we needed to stop now.
Some of the most influential people in squash claim it would add a lot to the games, but what impact would it have on the sport itself?
More people would see squash in the spotlight. Certainly that's what I would like to think, that where the Olympics would filter down into clubs, and hopefully maybe give the sport a little bit more money to invest within the national governing body, and reach out to more clubs, than maybe give clubs a bit more resources to get into schools. But if young kids see squash being played on TV in something like the Olympics, then hopefully it would really catch the eye.
So it's clear the sport faces a massive hurdle with the current IOC focus on youth and urban culture. So what does the future hold for the sport, and are we ever going to see squash in the Olympic Games?
I'm an optimist, but there is no reason why the Olympics can't find room for us. We've just got to convince them that our case is strong enough in what we bring to them, and do it in the right way, that we will get that train stopping at our station.